Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just weeks before the election, the Biden administration is trying to ram through yet 6 more federal judges without adequate vetting from this committee. There are 6 witnesses on this committee. Each senator is given 5 minutes of questioning. That counts up to 50 seconds per judge. They're doing this because the record of these judges cannot withstand scrutiny. I'm going to limit my questioning just to a couple because that's exactly what the Democrats want, is no scrutiny of radical judicial nominees. I'm going to start with Judge Brendisi. Judge Brendisi, should biological men be able to expose themselves to unwilling women, including underage girls?
Senator, that's not a view I share.
So your answer is no?
Senator, I want to be somewhat careful because there are a number of cases that are working.
Is your answer yes? You said that's not a view you share.
It's not.
Then why, just a moment ago, Senator Blackburn was asking you about, as a congressman, you were a congressman from 2019 to 2021.
That's correct.
You were original co-sponsor of and you voted for an Orwellian-named extreme piece of Democrat legislation called the Equality Act. The Equality Act mandated that biological men could play in women's sports, could go to women's bathrooms, could go to women's locker room. The women were not asked. The women were not asked if biological men could go into their locker rooms and disrobe with them. You sponsored it and voted for it. You just said a minute ago you didn't agree with men exposing themselves to unwilling women. If you didn't agree with that, why did you sponsor and vote for legislation that would mandate that women be victimized like that?
Senator, it's been a number of years since I sponsored that legislation, and I do understand that
it's been 4 years.
It's
been 4 years.
I understand, Senator. For the last 2 years, I have been serving.
I'm not asking about the last 2 years. You were a member of Congress. You sponsored it and voted for it. Why did you believe women and girls don't have a right to be free from harassment, to be free from biological men disrobing in front of them without the women or girls having any right to say anything about it or to protest anything about it? Why did you vote for that?
Senator, my recollection of the legislation is that it would prevent discrimination based on gender.
Your recollection is contrary to the explicit text of the statute. Are you fond of ignoring the text of statutes?
Senator, as a sitting judge now, and if I'm fortunate to be confirmed as a district court judge, I will follow statutory.
But you didn't when you were a congressman. You sponsored it, you voted for it, and by the way, to be clear, for some reason under Joe Biden, the state of New York really is getting hammered with judicial nominees. Another judicial nominee for New York was Judge Sarah Netburn, who on a similar issue ruled she had a serial rapist in front of her, a 6'2" man who was a serial rapist who decided to identify as a woman, and Judge Netburn ordered that 6'2" man to be incarcerated with women. Do you think the women in women's prisons have any right, and in particular a right not to be incarcerated, not to have a cellmate who is a 6'2" serial rapist?
Senator, I can assure you, if I become a district court judge, that I will follow the...
But my question is, do those women have any rights not to be incarcerated with a 6'2" biologically male serial rapist?
Senator, I think every person has the right to feel safe, and I can tell you...
Then why did you sponsor and vote for legislation that did not protect that right and violated that right?
Senator, that was a time when I was a policymaker, and I do understand that there...
Okay, so those are your policy views. By the way, so do you have any regrets for sponsoring the Equality Act? You said apparently you didn't read the statute, you didn't know what it said. Do you have any regrets for sponsoring legislation that would force girls and women to be subjected to harassment from naked biological men? Do you have any regrets for that?
Senator, during my time being a legislator in the House of Representatives...
That's a yes or no?
I sponsored thousands of pieces of...
Okay, so you have no regrets about that. All right. In the remaining minute, I'm going to shift to Mr.
Senator Ted Cruz opened his questioning by criticizing the Biden administration for moving quickly to confirm 6 federal judicial nominees just weeks before the election. Cruz argued that the rushed process left little time for proper vetting, noting that with limited questioning time, each nominee effectively received less than a minute of scrutiny. According to Cruz, the administration was accelerating confirmations because the nominees' records could not withstand close examination. He said Democrats were intentionally limiting debate to avoid deeper scrutiny of what he described as radical judicial nominees. Cruz focused his questioning on Judge Brendisi, raising concerns about her past legislative record. He asked whether biological men should be allowed access to women's private spaces, including situations involving minors. Judge Brendisi responded that she did not hold that view and emphasized caution due to ongoing legal matters. Cruz then pointed to Brendisi's time in Congress from 2019 to 2021, noting that she had co-sponsored and voted for the Equality Act. He argued that the legislation allowed biological males access to women's sports, bathrooms, and locker rooms without consent from women and girls. Cruz pressed the nominee on what he viewed as a contradiction between her stated position and her past vote, asking why she supported legislation he said exposed women and girls to situations they could not object to or opt out of. Judge Brendisi responded that her recollection of the Equality Act was that it aimed to prevent discrimination based on gender. Cruz challenged that explanation, saying the plain text of the law contradicted her interpretation. He questioned whether she would follow statutory text as a judge, to which Brendisi replied that she would apply the law as written if confirmed. Cruz then broadened the discussion, referencing another New York judicial nominee and a controversial ruling involving the incarceration of a male inmate who identified as female in a women's prison. He asked whether women in prison had a right not to be housed with biologically male inmates convicted of violent crimes. Judge Brendisi stated that all individuals have a right to feel safe. Cruz followed up by asking why she had supported legislation that, in his view, failed to protect that right. As the exchange continued, Cruz asked whether the nominee had any regrets about sponsoring the Equality Act. Brendisi declined to give a direct yes or no answer, citing the volume of legislation she had worked on during her time in Congress. With time running short, Cruz concluded the line of questioning and prepared to move on to the next witness.